Every December, a giant tree shows up in downtown Boston. It's cut down in Canada, driven for days, then lit up in front of thousands of people. Just a nice holiday gesture, right? But the real reason to why it's there is far stranger. It's not just a pretty decoration. It's a thank you note, gifted every single year for something that happened over a century ago, the worst disaster in Canadian history. December 6th, 1917. Halifax, Nova Scotia, is one of the busiest ports in the world. World War I is raging in Europe, and ships packed with troops, food, and weapons are constantly moving through its harbor. That morning, two ships are heading toward each other in a narrow strip of water called the Narrows. One is a Norwegian ship heading out to pick up food and clothing for people in Belgium. The other is a French cargo ship called the Mont Blanc, loaded with almost 3,000 tons of high explosives, heading for the war in Europe. The two ships bump into each other, barely more than a scrape, but it's enough to spark a fire on the Mont Blanc's hull. That fire starts crawling straight toward the explosives below. For 20 whole minutes, the ship just burns in the harbor. Word never gets out to the workers in the port that it's basically a floating bomb, so instead of running, crowds gather to watch. People inside nearby buildings press up against the windows. Kids climb up fences for a better view. Nobody realizes they're watching a countdown to their doom. At 9:04 that morning, the Mont Blanc explodes. A column of smoke and fire rockets thousands of feet into the sky, and the ship itself is blown apart into pieces scattered for miles. It becomes the biggest explosion any human being has ever caused, bigger than anything before it, and it stays that way until the atomic bomb, almost 30 years later. The blast destroys an entire section of the city in seconds. It shatters windows 50 miles away, and all those people who gathered to watch through their windows? The glass turns into flying shrapnel, and hundreds are blinded on the spot. Nearly 2,000 people died, 9,000 more badly wounded. Whole neighborhoods on the north side of the city are simply gone, flattened into splinters and ash. And if that wasn't enough, a massive blizzard hits Halifax the very next morning, burying the wreckage and the people still trapped in it under more than a foot of snow. But here's where the story takes a turn. A train dispatcher named Vince Coleman was working near the harbor that morning. Someone runs in yelling that the burning ship is loaded with ammunition. Coleman starts to run. Then he remembers a passenger train is due to go straight past Halifax Harbor any minute. So instead of running, he sits back down at his telegraph key and taps out a warning to the stations down the line, telling them to hold the train back before it gets anywhere near the harbor. Moments later, the ship explodes, and Coleman is killed instantly. His warning reaches the next station in time, and the train is held back miles from the blast. Whether that message is really what saved it is still debated today, but it's remembered as one of the most famous acts of that whole morning. So who ends up rushing to help Halifax rebuild? Not the closest cities in Canada. It's Boston, over 400 miles away, in another country entirely. The moment word reaches the mayor's office, Boston loads a train with doctors, nurses, and medical supplies, and sends it north, straight through that same blizzard. It becomes one of the fastest disaster responses in history, arriving in Halifax within days. Halifax never forgot it. The very next year, they sent Boston a Christmas tree to say thank you. That one gesture turned into a yearly tradition that's still going over 100 years later. So next time you see that towering tree lighting up in Boston, you're not just looking at a holiday decoration. You're looking at a 100-year-old thank you note from a city that once watched its entire harbor disappear in a flash and never forgot who showed up. If you want to go down another rabbit hole, there's more waiting right here.